McCarthy having knee surgery, and they won't know how bad, how long he'll be out until they get in there. That's typically how these things go. They got to go in and look at the meniscus. And for those that don't know, your boy Smitty always comes prepared for class. And we'll be discussing the knee, how this surgery is going to end up going down, how it will determine what length of time he's out, how this impacts JJ, Sam Darnold, the rest of the Vikings, and then we'll still look out for Jahmyr Gibbs news as we're live. But of course, if news broke on that, we'd end the live stream again and go live again so that you guys had a compartmentalized video. Because that's how we roll. That's how Dad did it. That's how America does it. And it's worked out pretty well so far. The Fantasy Football Show begins right now.
Live from the FantasyFootballShow.com studios. It's the Fantasy Football Show. Live! Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Smitty is also live whenever news breaks.
From the FantasyFootballShow.com news desk, here is your breaking news.
Look, fantasy football is not for the anxious Angus. You got to be able to weather through this stuff, and that's why depth is so important. That's why, cuffing these bad boys is so important, and we're going to be talking about that in a later video, maybe today at 8 p.m. or maybe we'll be doing a video in between. But not every situation is worth cuffing. It's case by case. So if somebody says cuffing's bad or cuffing's good, it's neither or. It depends on the situation. But sometimes you can walk into a Connor Benson, Breece Hall, and Braylon Allen, H.M. Mostert and Wright, all three, Corum and Kyren, and you have the safest running back room in the National Football League. The absolute safest running back room, or you can have one of the safest in the National Football League. Like a Bijan and Algier aren't the same thing, because if Bijan were to go down, it's not like Algier's going in and becoming what Braylon Allen could become, or what Benson could become, or what Corum could become per start, or what Mostert and Wright could become. It's a totally different ballgame. Maybe a Jaylen Warren could, but Jaylen Warren's got standalone value, so his cuff potential is differently. But neither here nor there. We're not here about that. We're here about McCarthy. Point is, injuries happen, and this is about the time of year where we're two major injuries in with Jahmyr Gibbs. And that might not even be a big deal. We still got to wait on that. Could be a 2 to 3 week situation for Gibbs, assuming it's not a grade 2 or something like that with the hamstring. But that's going to cause panic, and people are going to jump off the Jahmyr Gibbs train a bit. And that thing's going to coast into round 2, which I'll tell you what, I'm drafting Jahmyr Gibbs in round 2 all day long at this point. All day long.
Mashed potatoes!
All day long. Not even a hesitation in my mind. But we'll attack that as it comes. But I just want people to take a deep breath, and if you're ready to bail on fantasy after 2 injuries, I got bad news for you. This is the beginning. This is what separates the big dogs from the little dogs. This is what separates the absolute ballers versus the novice. You can't run away from fantasy because of an injury. I had 2-3 DMs already from people. I didn't respond to them. I can't waste my time with this kind of stuff. Like, Smitty, I'm quitting fantasy. Crying emoji. I'm done with fantasy. You're done with fantasy because somebody's maybe having a surgery that might make them potentially not be ready for week 1 when they weren't starting week 1 anyway. like, let's back up for a second. Sam Darnold was on track to probably start. There was a lot of thinking that maybe this kid could just go out there and do it. But Sam Darnold was still kind of in the forefront there, and he's probably going to start anyway. And this kid wouldn't have been on the field in week 1 most likely anyway. So nothing's really changed when you really think about it. That's going to make you run away from fantasy football. I'm done with fantasy, Smitty. McCarthy won't be ready for week 1. He might not have played anyway. I'm done with fantasy, Smitty. There's impact here. Okay, there's impact. They might go in and it could be a 4 to 6 month recovery. Like, you don't know. What happens is with the knee is this meniscus padding in between the two joints. it needs to be trimmed or repaired. If it needs to be repaired, we're in trouble. And this could be something significant to his long-term value. Trimming is not as bad, but it's also not good. In some cases, depending on the trim, it could be a very small trim, and then it's fine. But if you think about it like a brake pad on a car, you've got 4, wheels, and if you were to cut the brake pads and slim them down on one side, let's say of the left side, front left of the vehicle, and the vehicle slightly is off kilter, over time, it's going to have so many other alignment problems and issues that arise. Wear on the left tire, wear on the suspension differently. And you drive on that thing for a long time without adjusting it, like there's problems. This is an analogy, okay? I'm not saying a little sliver of your brake pad is going to necessarily do all that, but I'm trying to give you an analogy that if you cut the meniscus, even if you're slicing it, a small amount, there's still some alteration to the knee. If it's just a little trim, think of it like a piece of skin on your fingernail. If you ever, nasty habit, don't do it. It's disgusting. I'm going to chew my fingers, Smitty. I'm chewing because I'm nervous about Gibbs. I eat my fingers. That's disgusting. Stop it. But when you have had a little piece of skin there, every once in a while something's happened, even if you were to grab it, and you go too far. you rip it a little too far, expose the pink part of the skin, and it burns. You're like, son of a bitch, that burns. Think of trimming meniscus in that way. You could trim it, you could cut it, snip it, and it could be done. It could end there. But you could also have it to where it's still snagging, and eventually, even if you trim it, there's a little jagged piece, and then it gets caught, and then it rips again. So there's a lot of complications with meniscus, even trimming. Even if it's a small trim, there's still a risk level of that thing catching if it's not the perfect little procedure. If you were to repair it, it's problematic. And I will say that a significant meniscus tear or injury is worse than a clean ACL tear. And I know the layman might be like, well, that doesn't make any sense. It does make sense. Because if the ACL fairy were to fly into your room at night and just snip your ACL cleanly, you didn't have any damage where your knee goes left and right and smashes the meniscus, tears the LCL. Usually knee injuries in the NFL are catastrophic like this. Okay, everything tears. Look at the LCL and MCL going back and forth. Okay, smashing the meniscus when your ACL tears. Helmet hits the side of the knee. That's football. But if the ACL fairy flew in at night and snipped, you can see in the back of the knee, it's in the center, but on this model, the back of the knee, the ACL and the PCL crossing each other. The ACL fairy flew in and snipped it cleanly. That's better than a significant meniscus tear, because this over time causes arthritis. There's all potential issues to where you're having to cut and trim and clean up the knee constantly, a la A.J. Brown. Now, we love A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown's a massive monster. We love the guy. Always will. He's going to be amazing this year. But there's always concern in the back of our mind. This guy's had a lot of knee trimming. He's gone to the knee trimmer quite a bit. And it sometimes we find out after. It's like, oh, by the way, you've already drafted. It's preseason week number 2. AJ Brown had knee surgery 4 months ago. Biatch! And you're like, what in the hell, AJ? Why didn't you tell me about this? So there's constant cleanup work. Think of it like, you get work done on your face or something. You're going to have to keep going back for the cleanup work. It's not just done after one session. The damage you do when you go into the knee at all is bad. So let's hope they go in and they just have to do a little trim. They take a little bit off the top. That's fine. And then we'll go from there and we'll hope that everything's fine. I've had my meniscus all jacked up in a knee injury, and it's painful to this day. And I feel like there's something catching to this day. But I'm also not out there like JJ McCarthy, pro athlete, and so we'll see. He gets the best, care, and we have no way of knowing. The good news will be it was a small trim. The bad news will be, hey, we had to repair it. It's going to be about a 4 to 6 week injury then it's a little time to panic about long-term impact. Not necessarily guaranteed that he's going to have an issue, but certainly opens the door to more of a long-term concern. If it's a little bit of a trim, you just got to hope they trimmed it perfectly. He has the best doctor. I'm sure he does. And you don't want that thing catching. It's got to be a perfectly smooth meniscus after they cut it. Impact to JJ. Honestly, I don't know that there is much impact to JJ because wasn't Darnold on track anyway? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if maybe he's pushing week 1 McCarthy. I mean, the problem is he's not out there learning and practicing and getting versed. So the idea that Sam Darnold spends a little more time under center before JJ rips the job from him, it does seem like that time will be greater now. That a longer stay in the lineup potentially, because JJ McCarthy, who looked really good the other night, let's give him his flowers. It was against the second-team Raider defense, so we can't act like it's it was the Super Bowl or something. But he did look a lot better than he probably should have. You want my honest reaction? He looked really good. He looked really composed. But it was the backup, secondary. It was the Raiders. And it was a preseason game. And he did have an INT, but he bounced back from that. So that was a good mental, situation for him to endure and weather through. I like the kid. The kid's got a lot of character. And like I've said before, I question whether Drake May and McCarthy are those guys. I'm not saying they aren't. I'm just saying I wonder. And I don't wonder about their character. JJ McCarthy is a stand-up, first-class character person, as is Drake May. These guys are quality locker room guys, quality leaders. We just hope they have the physical skills and the ability to rise up. But I don't know that this is going to change much for week 1 anyway. And so anybody just absolutely going crazy right now with anxiety, it may not have any impact at all. It just, we wanted JJ to continue to mature and gain more exposure and experience. But sometimes these things put a player in handcuffs, right? And they mentally have to take in more. So maybe on the sideline, and you'll hear players say this once in a while, and you don't know if it's always true. Sometimes it's just them trying to speak positively, but they say something like, that really put me in a weird perspective situation and positioning where I couldn't go out there and throw. I wanted to, so I had to watch, and I learned differently. I absorbed differently. And maybe, kind of like when you break your right arm, you got to use your left arm, and all of a sudden you start getting better with your left arm. Then when your right arm is ready and you're ready to return to action, you've got this ability you didn't have beforehand because you started to use your left arm, and now you're a better person because of it. You're a more athletic person because of it. There's always silver lining in these things if you look at it right. And if anybody's going to look at it right, it probably will be this man right here, who I think is a high-quality character guy. So let's just hope that things go well for him. Very intrigued by what we saw, for sure. But, we'll go from there once we know what's going on with the surgery. JJ, again, I don't think it impacts much because Darnold was probably going out there anyway. The only thing that's going to be bad is if JJ's not ready for week 1, 2, 3. Like, let's say it's a bad meniscus situation, and we don't have indication that it is. I'm just saying worst case scenario. And Darnold goes out and Darnold's in week 1. If Darnold goes out and pulls a Darnold, and you can't switch to him, McCarthy, right away, then that's a problem. That would be the major impact, if you will. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I don't think there's much to panic on here given the situation. But, we have people already absolutely losing their mind and DMing me. Smitty, I'm quitting. Quit fantasy then. Like, if you can't weather through an injury that might not have even impacted whether he played or not in week 1 because of Darnold playing week 1 anyway. And then Jahmyr Gibbs might absolutely be ready for week 1 and have a 1 to 2 week situation. Remember everybody that panicked on Kyren? Kyren's foot injury. Oh my God, Corum's taking his job in the preseason already. Kyren sat out 2 weeks. It was like blinking twice. I blinked twice and Kyren was back. And he was out there just cutting left and right, looking like a machine. We need to be careful. Chase Brown, we need to be careful. we can't overreact on everything, people. We have so many injuries that are going to come down the stream here in a little bit. You got to be stronger than this. You got to be ready for the injuries, because the people I see folding right now like chairs over these 2 injuries, it's not looking good. You got to toughen up, Buttercup. You got to toughen up. We got a lot of injuries coming downstream. This is nothing. This is nothing. There's no season-ending injury here. This is a trimming, hopefully not a repair, probably a trimming. May not impact whether he would have played week 1 or not anyway, okay? And then Jahmyr Gibbs might be a 1 to 2 to 3 week injury, and he's ready for week 1 anyway. So calm down, everyone. Relax, take a deep breath. Super chats, let's answer these. We got Viral coming in with a super, says, if you're drafting right now, are you taking Taylor or Gibbs? Look, I don't move Gibbs that much. I take advantage of the ADP drop, but I'm not participating in the reason why he's dropping. I'm just observing and saying, okay, now I can take Gibbs in round 2. I'm going to do it. JT's safer, I suppose, if you don't like taking a risk at all. So if you're a petrified Peter or a worried William, or you're going to lose sleep, or you're going to blame me because Gibbs did end up having a bigger injury or whatever, or re-injures it in week 4 because he rushes back, and you're going to blame me and not take accountability, then take JT, please. Because I don't want to hear you in here crying, and not you, Viral, but somebody in here crying and complaining. Smitty, you ruined my life because you thought maybe Gibbs you didn't know Gibbs would get hit by a truck walking in to the stadium. He's fine. He got hit by a truck and is good, but he's going to miss 2 or 3 weeks because of a Mack truck, in parentheses, as the injury. And you're going to blame me. So if you're going to blame me, why don't you take the safe route? Sam, safe route, Sammy. But JT and Gibbs, they're probably on even playing fields now. Gibbs was way above him, in my opinion, before the injury. And now they're even Steven. Like rotational. Would you take one in one league, one in the other? The average person will say JT. And I'm fine with that. I don't think it's a bad call. I just think the average person will say JT. That's okay. You can take JT. I would probably take JT in side-by-side drafts just to mix things up. Just to stave off the risk. I take Gibbs in one. I take JT in the other. I'm fine with that. But if people are freaking out about these injuries, like, no offense, DeRozan, but all these injuries, 2 injuries. I mean, the Tracy one, we got the Tracy as well. We've had no injuries this offseason. You guys have a rude awakening coming. We've had a very quiet injury front offseason. We haven't had anything. Usually we have a couple torn ACLs by now. People done for the season by mid-August. I don't understand what you guys are talking about. This is smooth sailing so far. Even the Gibbs and McCarthy situation, these are the biggest things we've seen, really. Like I mean, there, aside from a couple other ones that even escape me right now, but like we got to calm down. We got a long road. This is nothing. I'm so worried about some of the comments that I'm seeing already. I'm so worried about a few of you. Because you haven't seen nothing yet. This is cakewalk. This is Mickey Mouse stuff right here. Because somebody's going to lose their entire leg by week 2 or 3. What are you going to do then? But anyway, 49ers legend Sam Darnold to the moon. Matt Miyako says this man's backup, who's apparently the starter for some weird reason, Sam Darnold, throws the best football in 49ers history. Viral, thank you for the super chat. Again, I wasn't speaking of you. I just was basically using your comment to speak to the people. $5 holler. If they are running from fantasy now, they probably were donating their league entry fee anyway. Loser mentality, real moon men, don't flinch. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to take this in stride. And there's nothing even to worry about yet. Like, this is nothing. The worst is going to be when we lose some big player for the year to a ACL or a broken, head, or something. Aaron Jones thoughts. I love his ADP. I don't, Elvis. I don't like Aaron Jones one single bit. I'm very sorry to inform you. But you asked me for my honesty. I'm always going to give it to you. Even if you super chat, I'm not going to dance around and say, yeah, no, I like him. But I don't. He's injury prone. He couldn't stay healthy last year, and really derailed Jordan Love's momentum. And Jordan Love took it back. He grabbed those reins and said, "Go onward, onward, let's go." And this year, Jordan Love with a healthy wide receiver room and a fresh, healthy running back, and Jacobs, who's got at least 2 years left, I think Jordan Love's going to the moon. But as for Aaron Jones, I mean, I don't like the system. I don't like the offense, really. I don't like the offense. I don't like Darnold at all. McCarthy, we'll find out. If he gets in there, I like him a little more. But I definitely am not drafting Aaron Jones. I think Aaron Jones is a walking injury at this point. He was always kind of injury prone. But Ziggy, how old is Aaron Jones? Isn't he 87 years old?
Aaron Judge is 32.
No, Aaron Jones. Ziggy, how old is Aaron Jones?
Aaron Jones is 29 years old.
He turns 30 in December. December 2nd, he turns 30. 3-0. No, thank you.
I'm having trouble hearing.
Ziggy, off.
Can you say?
Derrick Henry's an outlier. Don't use Derrick Henry. Don't use Mostert or Derrick Henry. Mostert didn't have a long workload for a long period of time, so he's an anomaly that's easily explainable. Mostert was healthier or less used. As far as this situation, stream is lagging. I don't think it's lagging. I see no one else complaining about it. I check your Wi-Fi there, Thomas. But yeah, not worried about Aaron Jones, because I'm not drafting him. But I appreciate you, my guy. Okay. Is anybody else having problems with the stream, or is Thomas talking out of turn? E111 says it's not lagging, Thomas. You might want to swipe down on your phone and turn off the Walmart Wi-Fi and jump on the 2G. No problem, says everybody else. Okay. Thomas, I appreciate you, by the way. Thomas to the moon. Not lagging, not lagging, not lagging. Me as well, not lagging. No problemo. I don't know. Two of you have said it's lagging, but I mean, two of you might be sharing Thomas's Wi-Fi. You know what I'm saying? Like, this might be a dorm. You might be in Thomas's dorm. How am I supposed to know if that's true evidence or not when I see not lagging, not lagging, not lagging, not lagging, lagging, not lagging, not lagging? I mean, you guys live in the same... Push the bunk beds together, okay? Get the Wi-Fi potential signal as one. Connect the phones. Put the phones back to back. Spoon the phones. Maybe together your phones can get one strong signal. No lag. I'm going to say no lag. According to the majority of the chat, we've got a no lag. Case closed. A Banto, $5 hauler, one player keeper, 2-year minimum, 1 QB league. Allen, Mahomes, Lamar, all kept. I thought you had all those guys when I was first reading that. Would you take Hurts over Debo and Pacheco in round 2 or wait around for AR5? In a 1 QB, I'm probably taking Debo or Pacheco, but this is not crazy in this format. It sounds like it might be 6 points per TD league, and then that does put the quarterbacks like that in round 2. So if it's 6 points per TD, I'm very tempted to go Hurts because of that format. And I sense it is, or why else would you be having all these guys going or being kept or whatever? But if you think you can get away with AR5 a round later or even 2 rounds later, maybe. But I think if you're the way you're talking about AR5 going the next round, that means that all these quarterbacks are going higher. I mean, Stroud and a Debo might be better than Hurts and maybe who you get the next round, but it's pretty damn good, bro. One player keeper league, 2-year minimum at 1 QB. It depends on your scoring, Banto. If it's not 6 points per TD, like if your quarterbacks aren't crushing the scoring, then I would say wait. But if we're talking about league winning material because of your QB scoring, and it sounds like your QB scoring is wildly high, then I'm going to say, dude, Hurts is going to ball. But AR5 and Debo's pretty nice too. But if you flip it, are you getting Dell and Hurts? I mean, Dell and Hurts is as good as Debo and AR5, if not better. You know what I'm saying? So if Dell's sitting there, then you just take Dell and you take Hurts in round 2. But again, only in that particular scoring. We watch Smitty because it's the best content out there and A+ entertainment. And Smitty, we trust, is not an excuse to not have your own take, says E-Rock. Exactly. Thank you. Appreciate you, E-Rock. E-Rock to the moon. Edward dropping a 4.99 says Steelers and Titans backfield. Who's the guy to draft? Not going near the Titans backfield unless it's Spears standalone. And that's fine. I'm taking him later. Depends where he goes, though, because he's all over the map in different formats, best ball, non-best ball. So, like, you're talking about where, like, there's no starters left, really. You know, Jaylen Warren's my guy. Would I take Warren and Najee together? Yeah. But would I rather just draft Jaylen Warren and go after other pieces? That's where I agree with the notion at that moment in time that I'm not cuffing everybody. There are certain cuffs that are smashes, and there's others that you almost say, give me, I don't need, you kind of need Charbonnet. Like, I'd almost say, move this down here, this tier break, and say that, yeah, Charbonnet, Walker, Algier, Bijan might be the very last of the you have to have the cuff. That's where I'm going to put the tier break there now. Warren is standalone. You can cuff him. It's not bad at all. But you can draft just Warren if you want. You can draft just Chase Brown if you want. You could draft Jacobs and not necessarily need Lloyd, who's already hurt. Rashad White, Bucky Irving, kind of an important cuff, I suppose, but I'm not winning leagues off and I don't really care about it. Spears, standalone. Vidal, who knows if Vidal's even going to get a shot in this Harbaugh system. Harbaugh's driving me nuts right now. So, Edward, appreciate you. James with a $20 hauler.
Alert. Super chat alert.
$20 super chat. $20 super chat.
Alert. Super chat.
James, appreciate you. My mang, James. James says, Smitty, need your advice. I got invited into a new league. I don't know how they draft. It's a standard scoring 12-team redraft. I've only played PPR. In standard, what is more important? Have the 1.1. Should I go Brees, Bijan, or Chase Hill? In a non-PPR, like it's standard meaning 0. What standard is dumb because it's not standard. It's ridiculous. They should call it R for ridiculous. Standard. What's standard about it? Stripped down basic. I'm in basic scoring. I play in novice scoring. Not James. It's not against you. It's so funny how that's the standard. It's no longer the standard. And standard scoring, sometimes people refer to as, standard PPR, and then people start calling PPR standard. So it's a really wild lingo that people have that you have to really dig in to see what people are talking about. But yeah, go running back. As long as best player available allows for it, and it probably will. Bijan for me, James. I'm smashing Bijan, and I'm doing it live.
Mashed potatoes.
Yeah, buddy.
We're doing it. We're smashing, James. Okay? So, James, draft Bijan with a smile. Or if you do go Brees Hall, I'm not mad at it. Just make sure you cuff him to his absolute marvelous handcuffing Braylon Allen. If you don't draft Brees Hall, draft Braylon Allen anyways and piss off the Brees Hall owner, if you will. That's my one request. James, appreciate you. Don't be afraid to go Kyren or Achane in round 2. Don't be afraid of it. Kyren more so than Achane in the standard scoring you speak of. James, to the mother freaking moon.
To the moon.
Appreciate you, James. And then was there another part of this question? I've only played in PPR. What's more important? 1.1. So just, running backs are a little more important, but doesn't mean that much of the running back landscape changes because everyone pulls in passes now. But Derrick Henry in the past, but he might pull in more passes this year than we're ever, imagining. So appreciate you, James, for dropping the 20 wad on screen. Phone lines are open.
Call into the show. Call into the show.
How many passes did Kyren catch last year? Kyren was a beast last year, bro. He did so much damage without pulling in a ton, but he still grabbed a respectable 32, 206, and 3 touchdowns. And I imagine that doubles. He at least gets 50. Kyren, 50 receptions, 350 to 400, and 3 to 4 receiving touchdowns. Kyren's going to be one of the better unexpected receiving backs in the National Football League this year, if you know what I'm saying. Phone lines are open. Dial in. I'm sure some of you Panic Peters need to get off your chest the panic that is, weighing you down right now about McCarthy not playing week 1 probably anyway, and now not being ready to not play week 1. Smitty, I'm really scared because JJ McCarthy, who wasn't playing week 1, won't be ready to not play week 1. Should I panic? Or are we okay? Look, and again, I'm excited for him. I am. And I'll even say this. Like, I'm intrigued by what Caleb's going to do from a fantasy perspective. I'm intrigued by what JJ's going to do. I'm intrigued by what Caleb could do. Doesn't mean I'm on Team Caleb. But I do believe that, there's some potential from a fantasy perspective for both of them. But yeah, I mean, we still got a lot to go. Preseason's very deceptive. Remember Justin Fields, especially in Chicago. Remember Justin Fields, how he was like 2 for 2, 2 50+ yard touchdown receptions in the preseason. We thought we nailed that. I mean, he was great from a fantasy perspective, but Caleb could always produce fantasy stats. That's never been in question. It's, will he be a leader? Will he fail as a leader? We'll find out. I know a lot of people are excited about Caleb. Smitty, will Gibbs fall down around? Yeah, he should definitely fall into the top of round 2 at the very, very least. So let's take some phone calls. Kevin, you're live. What can I do for you, Kevin?
What's going on, Smitty? I wanted to stay on the topic of injuries. And with Jahmyr Gibbs, it sounds like it's a hamstring strain. So with these soft tissue injuries like McCaffrey's calf, Jahmyr Gibbs and the hamstring, what sort of panic level would you have for soft tissue injuries?
Well, I mean, we've talked about this a ton already, but Gibbs is, you don't even know what it is. Like, it could be a very, 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 like minor strain. It could be a grade 1, strain to tear or whatever. And if it's a 2 or 3, we're worrying. If it's not a 2 or 3, then we're not worried about it. And it sounds, we have no clear indication yet, but it sounds like it is just something that, hey, my hammy feels a little tight. Okay, let's go evaluate it. They take him off the field. You don't even know what's going on yet. He left with an apparent leg injury. No one even knew. So it's not like they said, oh my God, he grabbed his hamstring. He's down and they're bringing him in. Like, those are the injuries when you know what somebody injured and they go to the locker room and all the reporters, the beat reporters, everybody's saying he hurt his knee. He definitely, then you're more in trouble. This is like he went in and they're like, they're evaluating him. And then they're like, yeah, he's got a hamstring injury. But we have no idea. He's a young player, very much on his side. And these things, like, look at Kyren's foot. Everybody freaked out about it because they just assumed the worst. No one knows, bro. And I'm so sick and tired of hearing people act like they know what they're talking about. And they're like, these things linger. Like, they can, but you don't know what this is yet. If it's a, grade 1, almost grade 2, then yeah, it can definitely linger. But in general, you can't blanket statement things and say, oh, Kyren's foot's going to keep him out. Those foot injuries linger. Like, you don't even know what's wrong with his foot. Aaron Rodgers took his shoe and sock off, and everyone started freaking out. It became Blistergate. He had a blister. Like, everyone needs to calm down. We don't know. Hamstrings, look, I had a calf tear last year, and I just kept tearing it. I couldn't get it better. When I go run right now, I'm just petrified that thing's going to just rip. And sometimes my calf will be sore, and as people get older too, especially, you start running, and I'm not a spring chicken anymore. When I was like in my early 20s and I'd go run, I never even thought about injuries at all. Every time I run now, I'm like, what's going to go out? And it's like, sometimes you have soreness, but it doesn't mean it's a tear. You know, sometimes my hamstrings bother me. There's tightness, and 2 days later, I don't feel anything. So, like, we just need to be careful not to start over-speculating this thing. Like, how is this going to linger? I don't know how it's going to linger because we don't know how serious it is. It could be just a minor little strain, almost like cramping in a way. Like his hamstring's cramping. You keep running on that, you can tear it, you can turn it into an injury. But we have no idea. We have no idea. There's no way to generalize this. People that generalize it don't know what they're talking about. They just don't.
Yeah, agreed. And that's the main point that I was trying to make is with soft tissue injuries, like you said, it could be something as little as a cramp where it gets massaged out, or it could be one of those things that lingers on. So it's tough to really evaluate because those soft tissue injuries are such a tricky thing that it's hard to like really place like, okay, he's going to be out this amount of time. You know what I'm saying?
All right. What else? Anything else, bro?
No, that's what I was just trying to gauge. Is like, how does this
We don't know.
affect their values?
All we know is people are freaking out more than they're being logical. So my guess is that when ADP's update on Underdog in just a little bit, he's going to be in the second round. And so for me, I don't know how in the hell you wouldn't take a gamble on that.
No, I agree, especially with like best ball, Underdog, stuff like that. Because if it does pan out, you just got them at a discount.
Yeah. I agree, bro.
No, I agree with you there.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you're taking a little bit of a risk by drafting him. There's no doubt about it, but that's okay. You know, but you got to know what you're signing up for. You got to know what you're signing up for. You can't draft Jahmyr Gibbs right now into and expect there to be no risk level at all. Because what if they're hiding the severity from us? What if it's nothing? Why haven't they come out yet and say like, hey, it's nothing. It's just a big, small little thing, not an issue. So there is some risk level, but there's also the chance that they're like, no, it's just very precautionary. We're just being careful. And they don't really care what everybody, how quick they are to update everybody. Well, we'll find out. We'll find out. Really hard to know, but we should know something today. And at the end of the day, that's not that much of a, like they're keeping things under wraps or anything like that. Like it's literally 24 hours, by the time they probably update us. Not a big deal. So we'll see. But I'm not buying the David Montgomery upswing. I'm not just coming in and draft. Like, first of all, Gibbs, like when people say it linger, like it's gonna linger. Again, they don't know what they're talking about because they don't even know the severity of the injury. Could it linger? Yes. Right. If it ends up being something devastating, if it's like a grade 2 or borderline 1 grade 2, then yeah, there's some risk that it could linger. But he's also very young. He could come back and let's say he waits maybe, I don't know, let's say he waits maybe 2 or 3 weeks and doesn't come back. Let's just say worst case scenario, he waits until week 3, comes back, and he's fine. He's fine the rest of the season. And keep in mind that like even missing 2 games, Jahmyr Gibbs could be running back 4 overall. Running back 5 overall, 3 overall. Like, let's not forget that. And let's not forget that if you draft him, you're not starting at 0 in week 1. You're not. So if they came out and said, I promise you he will be 100%, and no one can promise this, but if someone came to me and said, I promise you he will be 100% from week 3 on, but he's missing weeks 1 and week 2, I'm still drafting him around 2 because I'm putting somebody else in his place in week 1. I'm putting somebody else in his place in week 2. I'm not drawing zeros there. And then I combine those 2 weeks with the rest of his season, and I have the number 2, number 3, number 4 overall running back. So people need to understand that it's not like Monty. I like Monty. Monty's a good value, and I've said it all offseason. People are like, Smitty, why do you hate Monty? Where have I ever said I hated Monty? Monty's good for 9 to 10 touchdowns and like 900 yards. No matter what, that volume's waiting for him, and it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant to the Jahmyr Gibbs value. So people are just wild. Like Monty's good, but the climb Monty's about to see might be overstated. All right, bro. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Viral, what's up, my guy from New York?
Hey, Smitty, how's it going?
I'm good.
Hey, I just had a question for you. I know you're a best player available guy, so
Yes, I am.
I'm curious if this applies to the quarterback position. Like, for example, if I do end up getting lucky enough to land Josh Allen late round 3, and then on that 4 turn, are you taking Tank Dell over Anthony Richardson? Does that change if you don't get Josh Allen? Just curious how you feel about that.
If I have Josh Allen, do I take another quarterback in a 1 QB?
Well, obviously not, but
Yeah.
because then the best player available doesn't really apply to
No.
quarterback.
Best player available always applies, but best player available changes with the flow of the draft, with your team needs. It's like, I think you're confusing best player available with who's the highest guy on the pre-rank list or who's the highest guy on my ranking list, and that's not what best player available means. Best player available means when you're on the clock, who is the most bang for the buck combination of ceiling value, the highest floor value, your position of need. Your position of need with your lineup and your team 100% factors into best player available. So AR5 no longer becomes the best player available the moment you've got in a 1 QB Josh Allen as your quarterback. Your best player available constantly is going to evolve and change. So, yeah, it's for some reason people sometimes think best player available means something different than it does. It's ever evolving and ever changing with the flow of draft and who you're bringing into your team. So Tank Dell, best player available, that can be changed based on who you take in rounds 1, 2, 3. Tank Dell all of a sudden jumps to the best player available because you need a wide receiver, and he is absolutely going to hit a big home run from that ADP. So never, ever, 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 ever draft a second tight end or a second quarterback before you filled your lineup in a non-best ball 1 QB or 1 tight end league. That is probably the dumbest move someone could ever make. I have these people every single year, somebody goes, Smitty, it's Bob from accounting over at the local bank. I got a crafty idea. I took Mark Andrews in round 4, but then I took Kyle Pitts right after because I thought I could control the tight end market, Smitty. I thought I could just hold Kyle Pitts over everybody's head, and someone's going to give me something. What are you looking to get, Mark? Well, I was thinking about somebody that's drafted around where I took Kyle Pitts. Oh, so basically you took Kyle Pitts. Now you're just begging somebody to give you a player that you could have just drafted instead of Kyle Pitts that sat around his ADP. Like this is the dumbest move that ever was. And taking AR5 in a non-best ball, this is called bully QB in a best ball. I definitely take 2 QBs in a 1 QB in a bully QB approach in best ball. But bro, that's because optimal scoring starts your highest scoring quarterback for you. So you can smash doing that. But you draft AR5 and Josh Allen in a 1 QB when Tank Dell was sitting there, and is the worst mistake you could ever make, because you're going to screw up who to start each week 100%, and no one's going to give you crap unless injuries strike and you're 5 weeks into the season and you're 1-4. So no, never ever draft a backup quarterback or a backup tight end before you've gotten through majority of your lineup, ever.
All right, I'll take a lap on that one.
No, you don't have to take a lap. It's a good question because a lot of people ask that question for some reason, but I'm passionate about my answers so that you remember it. But yeah, I can't tell you. There's a guy that called in. What was it, 2 years ago? I think it was now. Time flies, man. If that was 2 years ago, and every week he called on the phone line and he drafted Kyle Pitts and he drafted. I want to say it was like Kelsey or someone like that. But he couldn't. It was the year Kyle Pitts was supposed to break out. Yeah. And every week he called me. He's like, Smitty, trying to get rid of one of these tight ends. I'm just like, bro, why did you do this? Why did you do? I just thought I was going to control. And every time he called it, I couldn't let it go. I'm like, why'd you do this? And he's like, I already know, Smitty. Just help me get out of it. And we couldn't get him out of it. It took until like week 10 or 11, and he just took a total bath on the idea. But what's hilarious about it is the player you're trying to acquire all season long to get out of it is a player that was sitting right next to Kyle Pitts anyway. You could have just drafted him. Like you're not going to sell him for something that goes way up above. And hold on, update on Brandon Aiyuk. The Steelers and 49ers have a deal on a potential trade, and Pitt is a good place. Is in a good place with the contract on Aiyuk, sources say. If San Francisco gives final sign-off, it's done. We got to end this live stream and come back live. It looks like Brandon Aiyuk to the Pittsburgh Steelers might be happening right now as we speak. So I'm ending this live stream. I'm going to start back live in about 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 minutes. So everybody return over here. Appreciate you. We'll be back in just a few minutes here. Aiyuk deal potentially looming. Aiyuk doesn't want to be in San Francisco. He's trying to force his way out, and the Niners want him gone. On good authority, they do not want him back. That's why Christian McCaffrey said, my former teammate when interviewed, this might be going down. Steelers. Justin, call back.